This is Rare Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome along to this edition of the panel with myself, Pat Barry, and we have another guest coming in later on, Mr. Guy Jones. But for this moment, we'll. Good evening, Alf McCarthy, down in County Cork. And good evening, John Lonergan from Cork City.
Good evening, Pat. Good evening, Alf.
Welcome, John. And I think Alf has a bit of trouble with his Wi-Fi, but we'll bet away, John, anyway. We don't care. We'll talk away, mate. And oh yeah, I mean we're fine. We had a few ideas, John, but I mean generally speaking, as I was explaining to Alf. And by the way, press the red button on the right hand side to subscribe to our channel, and we appreciate that, you know. And we were talking about trust and respect for politicians. I know they get a bad press. We know that. We both know that. We're in the world. We're in the world long enough. The first item is the trust and respect for our politicians. Now, obviously, there are many, many fine politicians today, even in the Dáil, in political life. We're not painting them all with the same brush. But over the years, in this country particularly, there's trust and, I suppose, respect for sometimes for politicians and their parties and their policies. They have really have lost some of that trust for the people in the country. And I suppose there is a duty upon them being elected by the people that they would honor that in some fashion. We realize that we're not a very rich country in one way. I don't think we are myself, but there are.
We're one of the richest countries in the world.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now, I suppose, who do you admire, John, politically? I mean, who do you like talking to or seeing on the airways? Like, you know, in the Irish Dáil at the moment, you know, you'd say, well,
not one of them.
Huh?
Not one of them, Pat. Not one of them. I tell you now, I saw something the other day, and I actually don't look at RTE for one reason, is because the whole lot of them just do not tell the truth. Right? They try to. They tell you what they think you want to hear. Right? There was a debate last week about the eviction bill. And Richard Boyd Barrett was saying something about, and Leo stood up and started talking a load of bull again, as he usually does. And the minister was sitting next to him. And the Canciola said, is there any objections to this, whatever was proposed? And the two of them sat down and said nothing. And the Canciola asked again, knowing that Fine Gael had to oppose it. And he then said, that's it, that's the business done. We go on to the next business, which is Taoiseach's questions. And then the minister stood up and said, I object. Like, they were sitting no more than 15 feet away from him, and they didn't even concentrate enough. The two of them, the Taoiseach of the country and the minister. Like,
and the Minister for Housing is Darragh O'Brien.
Yeah.
He's in your constituency. He's in your constituency, isn't he?
No. There's only four in our constituency. You know, that's
Simon Coveney, Micheál Martin.
Yeah, Donegal O'Leary and Michael McGrath.
All right. Oh yeah. It's out. And Alf, did you hear any of that? Or what do you think of the? We're just discussing trust and respect for politicians. I mean, there are a few decent people in politics. There's no doubt about that, you know. But how do you yourself, like with your, you know,
I suppose if you go back to, you know, if you go back to the days of the brown envelopes and, you know, how things were done over tent in Ballybrit and things like that.
Yesterday.
Do you think we have progressed since that time?
No.
Sorry, my signal is rubbish.
No, you're okay at the moment. We can hear you now at the moment, Alf.
Yeah. And do you think we have made
Okay.
any progress?
Asking the question, you know, improved or disapproved since the days of the brown envelope?
It's the very same to me, Alf. There's no difference. There has been no difference.
Anyone? Bueller? Anyone?
He can't obviously hear us, Paddy says it.
I don't know, Alf. We'll have to. Anyway, so John, I'm assuming what really. I mean, we have the spectacle the last week, which has died down now, of Bertie Ahern being welcomed back into the Fianna Fáil party again, with all bells and whistles blowing on his behalf. I mean, and
but should that answers Alf's question, eh? Has it changed?
Does, yeah. It does, and also, I mean, they were priming him for a run at the presidency when it comes up, but they did a poll in one of the newspapers whereby the majority of people said they would not vote for him. You must remember, and you remember, John and Alf, that Bertie Ahern was the Minister for Finance in this republic, and he went in front of a tribunal and said he had expected the tribunal to believe it, that he had no bank account, and he being Minister for Finance, he had no bank account.
And Taoiseach.
That he was a very lucky man, he said. Very lucky, because he won an awful lot of money on the horses. Now, I never knew that, but I mean, the bookmakers must be quaking in their boots in Dublin when they saw Bertie coming into their offices, because...
No, it was all done in Galway, Pat.
But
he won all the money in Galway.
But the finding of that tribunal found him... they more or less said he was a liar. I'm not saying he was a liar. I'm saying what the tribunal... And the findings of the tribunal on Bertie Ahern were never rescinded or overturned. They're there on the public record. So how could a party like Fianna Fáil welcome in a person like that back into the party? I don't know. As you said, John and Alf, what has changed?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
It does. Right.
I can't get what Alpha's saying, Pat.
He's frozen again. What we'll do, Alf? No, we can't hear you, Alf, at the moment. We can't hear you. It's a pity, really, and we can't hear you. No, you're frozen now again. You're freezing every 30 seconds. What I will do, if you can still hear me, is I'll send you a link in the morning and on another program and see how the signal is. You know, we can record a supplementary if you're available and insert it into the program. Record and put it into the program. Alf, I know. Can you hear me, Alf? Can you? That's a pity.
Yeah,
that's a pity. So, John, now we have another fellow Cork person, Holly Cairns, who was elected leader of the Social Democrats during the week, you know, unopposed. And I think that's a good thing for that party, that they have a leader, you know, not taking away from Roisin Shortall and Catherine Murphy, but it seems to me that those two candidates, those two people will not be running in the next general election, you know, both Catherine Murphy and Roisin Shortall. They won't be running.
But should they have their pensions though, Pat?
Over and over again, because they're both
thanks very much.
Yeah, that's true. And of course, Roisin Shortall was in the Labour Party. Can't hear you, Alf. Goodness me, it's a pity. That's a pity. We're not
looking forward to speaking with Alf now.
We're not hearing you on this end, unfortunately. But we're recording this, and so you needn't worry about it, you know. And we can.
the leader, the new leader, sure, all it is Labour coated over. She's pure Labour.
I must say I was impressed with her as a politician, as a young politician. She won a seat, obviously, down there against all the odds. I must admit, John, against all the odds. When you consider the history of that area, it was Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and that was the end of it. But Holly Cairns, obviously, the big test for her will be to hold her seat in the next election. But I think it's good for politics that there's a female leader of another political party. It can only be good, I think. I generally have a healthy respect for the Social Democrats. I would not agree, obviously, with all their policies, but I think, by and large, they're a decent party,
Well, I don't know much about them, being honest. As I said to you previously, I don't follow Irish politics because, to me, the whole lot of them are they're only looking after themselves. They don't look after the people. If they were looking after the people, you wouldn't have old age pensioners paying over €1,000, €1,200 for electricity and gas, and frightened of their lives to go out. And like, they start looking after the people. I mean, they have another, is it 2,000, 3,000 gone onto their salaries this month. Yeah. And again in October, another 1.5%, which will bring them all up to over 109,000 a year. 109,000, Pat. And we're all of us are struggling. The whole country is struggling to pay their gas and electricity bills.
I think
that's not, the politicians are not looking after the people, and this is what's wrong with Irish politics. It's May Féiners, and that time they throw an old soundbite.
And John, I think myself that the €200 that they're giving out, right? I'm not scoffing. I'm saying all that is doing is that €200 is going to the power companies that supply the electricity, and all that is doing is ensuring that the companies supplying electricity are keeping their profits high and their prices high. It's doing nothing for me. It's doing nothing for me.
But you don't get €200, Pat.
No.
You only get 178 or something because they take a VAT off it.
The VAT, I know that. Yeah, it's not 200.
I mean, that's total. Like, that's ripping people off in this country. Like you said it there, we get €200 off them. We don't. But remember, it's our money. That €200, we've already paid for it.
Yeah.
It's our money.
I don't know what to say, but all I will say is that there has to be serious change sometime down the line, because people are totally disillusioned with politics, and I think there is some justification for people being disillusioned and not having respect for them because of the fact of what has gone on through the years. I think some of them certainly do their best, a minority of them, to represent the people that elected them, but some of them very quickly forget that they're representing the people in Parliament, and I think that's a malaise in politics, even across the water in the government. Alf is still with us, Alf McCarthy. You're listening to the panel on NerdMedia.tv. Press the red button on the right-hand side, subscribe to our channel, we'd appreciate it. And we'll be here every second Sunday from now on. So just to confuse you totally, we won't be here next weekend. There'll be nothing wrong with us. We'll be here the weekend after. And anyway, which will be the 19th, and I think people might have recovered from St. Patrick's weekend then. But Alf McCarthy is involved. I can't see Alf. I can see Alf now. But I suppose we leave that there, we can always come back to that again, and we were always also asking a question, the housing crisis, it's never going away. Never, ever. I mean, there was a house that my son was in, I told you that went from 620 to 1,400. They advertised it up in daft.ie. The same house, he advertised it for €1,800. You should see the house. It's just falling down. There was such a furore onto the Daft website that they were forced to take it down when they put it up, There's nobody.
It's crazy.
So, Alf, as you were alluding to there earlier on before we leave the topic, that the politicians lost all trust in the 80s. They really didn't get it back. Will it take a whole generation to get to be elected, a whole new generation to be elected to the Dáil before they can count their blessings again and have a bit of respect got back? I don't know what they're supposed to do. I don't know really what the answer is myself, You know, John, what the answer is. I mean, I suppose an awful lot of it comes down to the choices you're given on the ballot paper when the election comes around.
But sure, you just look at ballot papers when they come around. It's loaded on the big parties. The reason being is they have all their groundwork done, and then you get a load of independents falling in, and they take votes away from other people, and that's how the big parties get in. And they always snake somebody in, There's always, and they know when to put two candidates in, and Sinn Féin lost out the last time because they didn't run enough candidates. You watch now, they'll run loads of candidates the next time.
Do you think if Sinn Féin get into government, we'll assume they will, well, they won't get into government on their own. We know that. There's no party going to do that anymore. Assuming they're the biggest party after the next election when the figures are crunched and they're leading the government, what would you expect, John? What would you expect them to do differently?
That's a $60 million question, because all along I was thinking, it would be a great thing for the country if we could break this two-party monopoly, stroke Greens, stroke Labour Party, stroke Progressive Democrats, stroke whoever else falls in. I would like to see it happen, but I really don't know what they'd actually do now, because they don't seem to object to anything. No matter what happens, every policy is voted in from the government. They don't seem to be putting up a proper opposition as far as I can see. Now, I take no notice of polls or anything like that, but I happened to be getting out of the car yesterday and seeing the Sinn Féin are down 1 or 2%. I don't know who got the rest. I turned off the radio. I don't know who got the other 2% that they lost. So that'll tell you that, they're sitting back doing nothing, which means they're just going to do, it'll be deja vu with whoever.
What do you think, Alf? Will if Sinn Féin does get into government after the next election, they'll be the biggest party. Do you think we'll see much of a change in the country?
He's kind of
No is the answer. The poll this morning, top of my head, was that Sinn Féin 29%, Fine Gael 21, I think, and the Fianna Fáil 17. The Progressive Democrats got a bounce to 9% as a result of Holly Cairns, and she was in the news all the week anyway. She was interviewed in every single radio station, so they got a favourable bounce in the people. I mean, if they could translate that 9%, we'd say 10% in every constituency. You mean they'd go from 6 seats to something like 20, 24 seats?
But that's if they have the candidates, Pat. You see, therein lies the question.
That'll be the struggle. That'll be the struggle for them. You see, and that costs money. That costs money. Now they have 24 councillors in the country at the moment, and they have 6 TDs and 2 or 3 senators. That's what they have. They have a presence, all right, but we saw the Progressive Democrats, they went up and up and up, and then they fell back to single figures seats,
Yeah.
And really, as you said,
But why did that happen, Pat? Why did that happen?
Because of their policies, John.
Yeah, they fell back into the routine. They fell back into, look, you do what you're told now, and you'll be a good boy, and you'll get your pension in 5 years' time. That's what happened, Pat. And people get disillusioned. And look, if you look back at all the elections, going back as far as I remember, people were always giving out and doing this and that. But the two main parties who have been running this country for 100 years know exactly what's required. I mean, Leo comes into government and all of a sudden the pensioners get €12 a week raise. Where did that come out of? Like, why didn't they make it, as I said before, the €350 that a week that everyone was getting in the COVID payment, bar the pensioners? Why didn't they give us that? Why don't they give us 350 or whatever, 400 or whatever it is a week? We worked bloody hard for it, Pat. We worked hard for it, and we supported most of them.
Well, I intend to, as I might as well admit here on the program, I intend to run as an independent candidate for the Clare County Council local government elections next May. Now,
brilliant.
I realise that the councils have limited power, but I also realise that you can raise issues. The council may not be able to actually vote it in, but if you make enough noise and get enough support, those issues are, generally speaking, taken on board nationally. So one of my main planks will be to raise the 253.60, I think, is the pension rate. I mean, in this day and age, it's an absolute shocking way to treat your sometimes vulnerable people, but people who have worked all their life. And I think that should be raised to €400 funds, and that's it. And that in itself, €400, as you know, John, goes nowhere anyway.
Nowhere.
I'm just saying, if you raise that with all the other things as well, then you could have a decent wage. The program is the panel here on nearmedia.tv. Press the red button. Good evening, Guy Jones, and welcome.
Good evening, and my apologies, sincere apologies.
Hi, Guy. Hi, Guy. How are you?
And John Lonergan. And we had Alf McCarthy, but his Wi-Fi, I'm afraid, is like. Do you ever see that film Frozen? He was frozen on the screen. No, we didn't. I don't think we frightened him. I know Alf. But he's gonna have
grandchildren. You must have seen Frozen 1,000 times.
But Alphonse, how are you guys since we saw you last?
Not too bad, thank you so much. How is everything going?
Very well. We're speaking about and if you have anything to put into the pot, anything at all, more than welcome, because this is a fluid, open program. We're not rigid by any manner of means. We're talking about trusting politicians and respect for them, and it is a difficulty with it. It's the same in most countries, I guess, Guy, with politicians, because the people elect them to be representative of them, of course, sit in the national parliament, but and many of them lose sight of that, you know, and we feel impotent in when because we were talking about before you come on the cost of living crisis, which is shocking and horrendous for people. You know, the price of electricity, the price of fuel, price of food. Even an awful lot of foodstuffs now are disappearing off the shelves because there's an unavailability. I know we have no control over that, but
and medication as well, medicines.
I mean, you're in this country a long time. You've met many politicians, Guy, in your time, obviously, and you've met many decent people who are politicians. We must admit that, for decent people, you know. But do you think that there needs to be, I suppose, a realignment of people to not forget their duty to the people that elected them?
In fairness, my own definition of a politician is somebody with a vision. Because if you don't have the vision, if you're just there to get elected, obviously, when you want to assess a politician's career, you would need to know what is their objective, what is their manifesto, why did they enter in politics in the first place. So once you have the objectives kind of well determined, you will see that people work better. Even if you were an idealistic person, somebody with idealism, you will be shocked at the way that that politics is conducted, and that you are actually stopped from achieving your plan or your ambition through politics. It is a very tricky business to be a politician. And most recently, I mean, the most successful people in politics would be the ones who are not coming out openly into making promises. And it takes a mechanism to get a promise done, and but at least you would be more kind of confident that your politician that you have elected is working for you on the basis of their own of the manifesto.
But Guy, when was the last time you see a politician doing exactly that?
It is extremely rare, and
Yes.
and that's the reason why when you see one, you kind of say, "Yeah, this is it. We're just landing on somebody who's got the integrity to actually deliver what they have spoken of, or you know,
But
publicly."
the main problem in Irish politics is, from what we were speaking about earlier, you've only two parties that were running this country for years, for the last 100 years. And when you can go into the Dáil. I mean, it happened to what's the guy from RT who
Correct.
George Lee.
George Lee.
6 months. 6 months he lasted because he was told, sit up the back of the Dáil now and keep your mouth shut, and when we'll ask you to say something, you'll say it. And that's why he left government. He got in. He was one of the only guys that if he was in my constituency, I would have given him the vote. Because again, he went in with the right attitude. He was gung-ho, gutso. He was young enough that we could believe him. And he lasted 6 months. I mean, does that not tell you what happens to the honest guy in this country?
Well,
especially coming from a seasoned, I think, journalist, and so he was very well known in the media. So he may have interviewed, and he may have been working on topics all his career life that deal with politics. And then when you're facing with the reality, when you're there, this is where it hurts most. And when you see that you are not able to deliver, he did the decent thing, resigning.
Yeah. And
that's
it is important. It is important, as you said, to have some principle. We all know, obviously, if I'm in a political party, obviously,
you have to do what the political party says.
You shouldn't give up, as Guy said. You shouldn't give up your vision or your principle or what you stand for. I mean, as you said, when people put their names on a ballot paper and like locally, and you see them, you could say, well, John stands for, I know John, and he stands for A, B, and C, and I know he'll do that. But then you see, people forget that. And I think that's terrible. We want to be very careful, because it's the only control we have as citizens in this country is electing our government for 5 years to look after us, really look after the country, have some kind of a vision, as you said, and integrity about it. You know, really, I think people have lost sight of that. Too many people have lost sight of that. Some have, but some have been sidelined as well, you know. But we hope that it will raise itself again as a principle to stand by, you know. And I prefer to elect a man or a woman of principle than just a party person who, you know, that they're just going to be there to put their hand up to vote in stuff, or put their hand up to vote against something. And I think really that erodes the confidence.
I don't know if John agrees with me on this, but now the media, because it is broadcast, because everyone is actually accessing, what is being said, and everyone is also how do you call it, able to respond, whether it is kind of comment on your Facebook page or Instagram or whatever. There's a lots of interaction right now. There is a punishment that the electorate will actually turn around and actually they would punish the fact that you are, what are you doing? I've elected you on the basis of something. I mean, like, so I believe this kind of accountability is now more in fashion than we even suspect. So it goes beyond hoping. You know what I'm saying? Because you
Yes.
mentioned,
I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
And when they call at your door, you send out the dog instead, do you?
Yeah.
probably.
Well, the 2 eyes double barrel shotgun.
The panel is the program here on LearMedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us. Press the red button on the right hand side to subscribe to our channel. We'll be here, and then you can find us on all our usual platforms. Now, lads, we had a little question as well about is our education system in Ireland is there too much emphasis on passing exams rather than exploring the possibilities for boys and girls? And what I mean by that is looking at their artistic creative side, whether they're good at dance, whether they're good at art, whether they're good at whatever. Is that neglected somewhat in the system? I dare say to be the same around the place anyway, you know?
I think yes, because you look at I look at the American system. Now, I don't agree with everything they do, but if your child is good at something, they get a great chance in America to follow their dream. In Ireland, you're either playing GA or rugby. It depends on the school or what class of family you're from. You have to get into athletics by joining a club. There's nothing in the school. Now, some of the schools now have changed, all right, but I'm going back a good few years. There was no opportunities for us to enhance our natural ability. We had to go out and they had to be found somewhere. Whereas in America, and I think in England lately, in the last few years, they are now starting to do that as well. I mean, there's more girls involved in the sports, and it's the same here in Ireland now. But we seem to be following everybody.
What do you think, Guy, yourself, your experience?
My experience was through my company, the company I work for. I was kind of on a board of a STEM, which is more into science-oriented education, let's say. And I was involved in the revision of the junior cert.
Very good.
So the question was, do we go in depth or do we go in width? In width means broader knowledge or concentrated into in-depth knowledge. And if you want to give somebody a choice, you really have to put all the cards on the table and say, now you choose. So you really need to broaden it out. But our country, Ireland, is actually in lack of the science-oriented. And there is a huge demand for our economy into science, such as be it engineering or chemistry or physics, etc. So, or even on the what we call it, the research laboratories, etc. So I believe that it's a huge national question there. What do we want? What does our economy need? How can we orient our students to actually fulfill their role? Otherwise, what will happen eventually is you're going to graduate people who wouldn't have a job in Ireland, and you will be dispatching them to be the immigrants of the world. You know, this is what happened in Lebanon, actually.
Yeah, that's true, because I mean, well, I know in John's case, I don't want to put him on the spot, but his son is world champion dancer. Now, obviously, he didn't learn that going to school.
Yeah.
No, it's just this was a natural talent
was
he had.
extracurricular activity. You
Yeah,
know?
and but I'm always saying this, right, about this country, right? There is a lot of very, very, very good, intelligent young people in our country, but because of where they come from, or their lack of what would you call it?
Money,
Yeah, lack of
resources.
incentives and resources, right?
Yeah.
They're lost to society, and they get dragged into the drugs and the drink and living off the state, right? I think we could solve this country could solve a lot of crime and a lot of that if we concentrated on maybe putting them into the army or the navy instead of leaving them come out of court and they go back into the same system again. Right? I'm after deviating a small bit now from education, but it
No,
comes back to
it's all
the same thing to
related.
me.
It's all related. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's related in that we don't encourage the younger, the intelligent people from the poorer societies, if you know what I mean.
Equality, I suppose, equality of opportunity. How often do we hear that discussed on different television and radio programs? Equality of opportunity. It's all very fine, but
like I've seen some fantastic Irish dancers down through the years who were lost to the sport, because that's what I class it as, a sport, because their parents couldn't finance it, so the child had to go to something else, and then they were lost to sport in general, and that's how they end up on the bad roads. There's no incentives in this country for to develop the younger, the poorer people. And I hate saying the word poorer, but in this climate at this moment, the whole bloody lot of us are poor.
Yeah. We're lack of resource, but I mean, we're asking the question, and how many schools, because I've done no survey and I haven't looked up any statistics, how many schools regularly have drama classes, art classes, get out chess games and drafts and play them for a half an hour, beside following textbooks, this question might come up or that question might come up, and there's a need for that as well. I'm not knocking exams is just, but I'm just saying, how many schools have that integrated in their normal daily activities? I don't know, Guy, what the answer is. I don't know.
How many people have you met who are amazing people to talk to and would do a very bad interview?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
Somebody you're dragging in to do a test, and they are all nerves, they're wrecked even before entering the exam room, and they will do so badly at the exam.
And you're looking at one of them here.
And I'm the same. I went to an exam once after I lost a job and after the crash, and I had to go on a course and we had to do an exam. And I can't remember now what it was about, but I knew the job inside out. I could actually do the job with my hands, but I had to pass this exam. And there was 12 people sitting down doing the exam, and the teacher said, "Turn over the paper, start now." And I couldn't even write the word "that," THE. I froze. I went blank. And she came down and she gave me the answer to the first question, whispered in my ear, and I still could do nothing. So I couldn't go further because I couldn't, but I could actually do the job better than any of the guys who were sitting and girls who were sitting down there.
I know. You're right,
and
Guy.
That goes back to your point, Guy.
But you're right, Guy. I mean, being called for an interview, I mean, I was self-employed in taxi, my kids were young. not giving my life story here, but I applied for the civil service. I did the exam, but I was called for an interview, and I cut long story short. And I hadn't done an interview in 31 years. 31 years. I went into the room, 5 people behind the desk, not 2 or 3, but 5. I went in and I said, the first thing came into my head, I said, that's it. This is over for me, you know. This is all over for me. I could do the exams, the aptitude test, the mathematics, everything, but this is going to kill me. The person who was in charge of the interview said to me, welcome. And I said to her, by the way, I'd like to tell you, this is my first interview in 31 years. I haven't a clue. I hope you're forgiving on. But she was only for her. I'd have left immediately and gone home, but I didn't. And they asked me after just 45 minutes was the interview. I came out. My friends asked me, "What did you discuss?" I said, "The only thing I remember is giving them my name and date of birth. I remember nothing else after that." And them shaking my hand and I going out the door. We're talking there, Alf, about interviews, being prepared for interviews, prepared for life, and in the setting that there should be more creative activity in the classroom, like a piece of drama every day integrated into the classroom, board games like chess and drafts and everything, just to give people a broad spectrum of activities as well. You're hearing us loud and clear now, are you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Which is the thing.
Absolutely.
No, we can, yes.
The floor is yours now. The floor is yours. We're talking about the education system. Is there too much emphasis on passing exams and not the creative?
Oh, all right. Okay. It's saying, join us now, Alf. And we were talking about the metaverse. And if you'd expand on that, that would be wonderful. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, school. I mean, if you cast your mind back, in my case, school didn't prepare me for life. When I came out, I was an idiot. You know, I in certain things, but as when it came to living in the real world, no skills whatsoever. Even, you know, how to communicate with the opposite sex. I remember boarding school for 5 years. When I came out, I was still that 12-year-old kid who went in, even though I was now 17 going on 18. I remember taking a girl out pictures, and I was terrified of putting my arm around her. I mean, terrified, you know, knot in the stomach, the whole thing. And what is the most natural thing in the world is put around somebody or to hold their hand or whatever. I couldn't do it. I was terrified. So if you take that and multiply it across how to boil an egg, or, you know, how to fill in tax reform, or how to apply for a job, I had those skills, you know. And I look at kids today, and I see my grandkids, and they trip to school, and they're laughing and they're smiling. And I keep my daughters, I want to go back to school. I want to get involved. I want to be there, because it's a wonderful, uplifting educational experience now for them, which is marvelous.
Yeah.
You know?
And I say to people all the time, young people particularly, and they do, a lot of them treasure the time, but this is some of your best times. I'd say that what Alf said there resonates with what you were saying, is preparing yourselves for adulthood as well is important, you know, as well as passing exams, you know, in the classroom, you know, in the school setting.
Oh, yeah. And I remember in school, we actually getting a little booklet on etiquette. And it was the basic stuff, like holding the door open for somebody, asking your elders, saying please and thank you. And I thought that was wonderful. I really did. It's gone. You know, I am one of these people who, if you're to a shop and they don't respond, I said, I will emphasize, excuse me, I did say thank you, you know, or something like that. And I mean, the effect is always like,
I know.
What did he just say? And sometimes it just goes rhythm. It doesn't impact at
But-
all, you know.
But that is
I
part
think
of the
we've
problem,
lost
man. That's part of the problem, man. The respect
Yeah,
that we were taught in school is gone.
yeah.
I mean, they don't respect any, and I'm talking
Yeah.
about your grandchildren now, and I'm talking about anyone else's grandchildren. They don't respect elderly. They don't respect the law. They don't respect the church. They don't, no matter what denomination you are. And it's just frightening. I mean, I was told a story the other day that this friend of mine, her daughter, she's 17, going on 18, and her mother was laid up with after an operation. And the young one came down the stairs and she said, "Is there anything there to eat?" And her aunt said, "There's a pizza. You can." How do I cut it? True as I'm sitting down next to you, in front of you. How do I cut a pizza at 17 years of age?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, well, this comes back to the point, Guy, and after we were saying a lot about school. In the old days, they had what was that called? Domestic science.
economics.
Sorry, domestic science. I have to remember that. Domestic science showed you how to cook, basic things like cooking, making a bit of bread, cooking food, making an apple tart. These were all part of the preparation for life. Now, obviously, if you have your mum and dad at home showing you that's true.
But that's where I learned all that, Pat. I didn't learn it in school. I learned it at home.
Yeah, I did too. Even though there was 9 of us there, we'd be waiting for the cake to be baked. I'll tell you, some evenings as well, because we'd be hungry. But anyway, we'd have the taste.
Licking the ball.
But Guy, you'd agree with us about preparing people for life. That it's not all about a Shakespeare and and repressive love in Emma and all of that. And it's about playing games, drama, art, the practicalities seems to be lost in the classroom today.
That is in one way why I do actually appreciate the transition year. The transition year is one of the most amazing experiences if it is well prepared and it prepares.
Yes, it's well prepared.
Yeah,
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
But why does it take 15 years or 16 years for that to happen?
I saw.
Go ahead, Alf. Yeah.
Frozen.
I saw a great cartoon during the week. There's a man on his deathbed, and the family are around him, and they're waiting for his very last words. And his last words are, the hands go up and he goes, "I made it. I got through life without using algebra." And then he died. It sums it up. We are taught things in school that we never, ever use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Pat, I have to say, the arts, my man, are where it's at. It's bread and butter to me.
I know. And by the way, lads, Alf, you can send me. Alf will be will be touring around. He'll be in Limerick down next to the wood. Have you any plans to go to Kilkenny, Alf? Guy is from Kilkenny.
You're very welcome anytime.
I'd love to go to Kilkenny, and maybe you can give me some numbers, Guy. We'll make contact with local theatres there. But we're starting next from the National Concert Hall, and then on Sunday we're in the Mermaid in Bray, and it's our first time going to the Mermaid. Civic in Tala, we have fallen in love with this place because they are amazing there. And I was saying to Pat earlier that we went to Limerick to the University Concert Hall last November with the Vera Lynn show. So we're going to be back there on the 14th of May, which is a Sunday, and we're doing the Swifties Let's. You'll fit right in. I can see you, John, putting on the old paisley shirt and going, "Cool, dude," the shades and everything, and we'll sing along to the Beatles. It's fantastic. You're all invited, but Guy, yeah, please.
I'll supply the drain pipes, the
Kilkenny.
hipsters, and the cheese cloth shirts. All right.
I still have one of them. You're all right.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, the panel is the program here on airmedia.tv. Press the red button on the right hand side to subscribe to our channel. And I mean, some of the topics we bring up in the program are heavy. I admit that. Some of them can be heavy, and some of them can be very challenging. But really, I suppose because it has affected me personally through my own family, we're just looking at the idea of what's the word I'm looking for? The housing crisis. Now, there is a housing crisis in this country. There's a housing crisis in many countries. We know that. But in this country where we live, where we reside, it's next to impossible to either, what's the word I'm looking for, to get a house to rent, never mind to buy. I mean, where I live in Shannon in County Clare, there's one of the cheap houses to rent went up during the week. There's one house, €1,800 a month to rent it. It's a 3-bedroom house. Now, I've been looking around at people I worked with, people who are fairly seen on the civil service, and they would be put to the pin of their collar to rent that house, Never mind anybody else who's at lower grade, like clerical officers and executive officers and that. I don't know who is in the market for 1,800 quid. Although I can say one thing, we did an interview with Thomas Kennelly, who wrote Schindler's Ark, which the film Schindler's List was based on. We did an interview with him 2 weeks ago, and the cameraman we borrowed with us for the day, he's staying in a house with 4 more people, and they're paying $2,200 a month between the 5 of them, a 4-bedroom house. My jaw nearly dropped down to the ceiling when he told me. I mean, this is the going rate inside Limerick City. It's, I don't know, lads, what the answer is. I remember, Alf, and you remember too, John, probably, in the 60s, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was a huge amount of house building by local authorities. That's what they're tasked with. That is dry. I know, Guy, down around where you live in Kilkenny, I'm sure the same. There must be a huge shortage of accommodation.
Scarce. There's no houses whatsoever for rent. And if you find one, there will be 1 or 2 maybe on daft.ie or something.
Go away. Cheapers.
But like in Cork, in Cork, right? Where I'm living, there's 4 houses. There's an apartment, a flat, as we call it, that the girl who was living in it had some mental issues, and she set fire to it. That's it's over 13, 14 months ago, and it's still boarded up. There's a bungalow just down the road for me that's been idle for the last 11 years, and it's left rotting away. There are loads of other places where houses have been left derelict, right? Now, we have a situation in Cork, as you probably know, I think I said it last time, where we have compulsory purchase orders of land. People's gardens, front gardens, are being compulsory taken to provide bus lanes and cycle lanes. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's a different argument. But they can purchase your land, but why can't they purchase? I mean, there's 3 houses around where I'm living. Why don't the council and local governments buy those houses and give them back out to people who are on the waiting list? Why is it Why is it privately sold? Why do they leave the private market come in and totally dominate us? And this is why we have 2,000, 3,000 euro a month rents.
That's right.
Well, I don't know what the answer is, but to me, the answer is obviously to build more houses. But the question must be asked: why aren't they being built? Why aren't they being built?
You remember the crash? You remember the crash in 2008?
Mm.
There was an over houses, estates built. Some of them were not even finished at that stage.
That's right.
I was sure back then, because the government that came in afterwards came in with special powers for about 6 month period. They would have been able to do a lot of good work. They kind of decided not to go after the white collar actually crimes that happened, and decided to put a cap on building and constructing. This has created this kind of huge demand, and there is very little on offer, and then the prices are going to creep up. They chose not to intervene, and not to leave the market free, and to leave the market to play, by itself between offer and demand. And I believe that at this stage they need to intervene, such as, for instance, there are towns. Today I was passing through. I went to on a drive, and then I was passing through a town, and I saw they're doing the sidewalks. They have rejuvenated the town, which means it makes it appealing for me to actually live in a town like this, where there is some sort of a modernity to it, or something like this, modernization. Yes. Rather than leaving houses boarded, as you just said, John, there, boarded and whatever. Uplift, this could be an opportunity.
Exactly.
This could be an opportunity to actually invest into our small towns and make them, more appealing.
Yes.
We don't
100%.
have to live in cities. We don't have to live in cities.
Exactly.
Be it Cork or Galway or Kilkenny, really, or Limerick.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that you're right. There isn't any one answer to the housing crisis. We know that. But if there was, it'd be
the developers. The other side is that the developers will say to you that they put in ideas into the various planning commissions, and it's all tied up in red tape. You can't do this, and you can't do that. And many, whether you're on the side of the developers or not, they are trying to build houses. And unfortunately, with the cost of materials going up, the cost of the house is going up. And what was proposed, let's say, for state maybe 5 years ago even, now the cost of that has gone through the roof, if you pardon that pun. And how do you tackle that? So is it at government level? Is it at when you get down to the local authorities, because they're trying to put the onus back on them to sort it out? So have we just created this mess that we cannot get out of, or is there the will to get out of it?
There's no will. There's no will from the political parties to solve this. That's the problem. You cannot. A pyramid starts at the top, and what happens in all of our dealings in this country is they blame the guy at the bottom all the time, and they take away all his benefits and all his things, and they make it so hard. I mean, I cannot understand how the cost of anything has gone up. I really can't, because the governments control it. Our government can control anything in this country, because that's what we elected them to do, is to look after us. But they're the richest politicians in the world. And yet all of us are struggling. So that tells me that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, is look after the people.
Well, that's true. That brings us the circle right back to the beginning of the discussion tonight. But if people want some answers to the housing, I would dare say they should look at Switzerland and Austria for examples. I know they have free public transport now introduced in Switzerland. I think they're introduced in Austria as well, but I have to look it up again for people to get around. But building houses. What the government does in Austria, they build houses and apartment blocks for the people. Now, John, if you want to buy your house, you can buy it. Guy, if you want to rent it, I'm not talking about rented. You get a 20, 25-year rent, a lease on your renting. If you want to rent it, you can rent it because you don't have the means to buy it. And that's no problem. And Alf, if you want a short-term lease, you can have a short-term lease. And if I want to buy it, but there's, I mean, we're caught up here. We trip each other up with what I call the apartheid system of housing in this republic. Social housing, affordable housing, buy to rent, house to rent. What are they talking about? Build 500 houses in outside Kilkenny if they're needed and required by the and leave it up to whether Alf can buy, whether I can rent. It doesn't matter.
But the
They're all houses for all the people. There's no
but the
single one of them.
problem, Pat, is that they allow the vulture funds, the big funding, come in, and they buy in block. So
Yeah.
when you go to buy a new house in a housing estate, nearly all the houses are gone. You might be lucky, and there might be 6 or 7 left. Check out any building site, and I guarantee you, any new buildings in the last 10 years.
John, before we forget, surely at this stage, as we all agree, I'd say, leaving it to the market has failed miserably, without a shadow of a doubt, utterly miserably. So we can't do that anymore. But the ideological strain of the two right-wing parties in government since the foundation of the state, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, that's the cycle, I'm afraid. I'm not blaming them for every single thing. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want that message to go across because I know some fine people in all parties, fine people I respect and I have regard for. But you build houses as they did in the 60s, Alf. You saw them in the north side of the city and everywhere around the country. They built them when we had very little resources. They built houses, public building house, build houses for people. If you want to live there, live there. If you can buy it, buy it. If you can rent it. Give them security of tenure for God's sake.
Going back to that time, right? The ordinary working man, when them houses were built, and he was lucky enough to get one, and he was renting it off the council, he had an option to buy it over so many years. And that's what made people work and stayed working. They had a goal to achieve in life.
Correct.
Ask any of the young people today. They have no goals because everything is out of reach for them. They don't have the thing of I want to meet a girl, get married, have a house, and raise a family. Ask any 19 to 27-year-old, and they'll say, "Oh, I just want a roof over my head."
True, and I think
that's Mammy and Daddy's house.
We'd all agree. We have to wrap up soon, lads. We'll all agree that a massive public housing is required by all local authorities, as they did before, as they proved they can do it again.
100%.
And if you have Cork County Council, Clare County Council, where I live, Kilkenny County Council, they'll give local employment to all the tradespeople that are there in the community, like bricklayers and architects and planners and plumbers and carpenters. I mean, why? It's not rocket science. Why can't it be done? I don't know.
One of the main reasons, Pat, is go back years ago, they stopped the apprenticeships. Again, that's another step that took away from people. They stopped the apprenticeships. So now you have no apprentice carpenters, you have no apprentice plumbers. So you go looking for a carpenter, you go looking for a plumber, you can't get them. You look for a tiler, you can't get them. There's no apprenticeships. And then all these young people have nothing to aim for. That's my point from a while ago.
Now, before we finish, Alf, you can send me, you can message me with the details of your trip around Ireland and the details. But what's the name of the show again for our listeners? They'll be looking in.
I will indeed. Yep.
I
will. Sure. Yeah. And I'm looking for a paisley shirt, so you could, if you could give me a loan of yours from your wardrobe, I would appreciate that. Wear it with pride, Pat. As you know. Yeah. I'll have to get a wig, I think, for this part of it. But yeah.
Lads,
and we're, as I say, we're going on tour with our 60s show, and the very we're going to do. I've just written one about the 50s, so I'll be really plowing into your wardrobe for that one. That's for sure.
oh, my God, we look forward to that, Alf, and the best, and lots of success with it. And I said you can message me with all the details, and I'll put it up in the link with the show as well for people, you know. And lads, it's been a blast, and we really appreciate your time to take out your schedule to be with us on Sunday night. From John Lonergan, from Guy Jones, from Alf McCarthy, and myself, till we meet again, lads. Take care.
Thank you.
Happy singing.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
This is Rare Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel.